many fans you were in this year.
Hello and welcome back to coverage of the PDGA Euro Tour. This is the second stop, the Konopiště Open, and we are happy to be bringing you round 3 front 9 MPO lead card coverage. This is the final round as we see a clash of nations and continents here. We'll get us started with Niklas, Anttila. I'm Connor Wood, and with me, Elias Luukkonen.
Hello Connor, nice to be here once again as we look at Niklas Anttila, obviously leading the tournament. He's been putting incredible and driving also almost just as solid. He's 23 under through two rounds. Trailing him, Paul McBeth obviously played a very hot 14 under second round. Looking forward to continue that in the final here. He's only 2 strokes back of Niklas. Looking forward to put the pedal to the metal.
As we see Daniel Davidsson, strong contender. He's had some really good finishes so far already this season, including, I believe, a second place at Nokia just last weekend. So he is coming in with a strong momentum and a very strong thrower off the tee.
Yeah, statistically one of the best throwers in the tournament so far. And Jakub Semerád obviously playing a very solid European swing so far. Finished second in the Pro Forester last week. Hopefully trying to finish top 3 in this one as well, as we see the top 10 in the background, Paul and his caddy Jonas. So as we said, Niklas leading by 2 over Paul, who is leading by 2 over Daniel, and Jakub only 1 back. And a variety of players a little bit back from there. Most likely the winner is going to be from discard.
And we get started here with this final round coverage on hole 1. A downhill par 3 at 122 meters. You have OB lining the left the entire way, as well as the tree line on the right. A lot of players will try to push that tree line as close as possible with the backhand hyzer to straight shot, or if you'd like to play a more safe but more risk-averse but less rewarding line, you can also just play a stock forehand hyzer, oftentimes coming up a little bit short but most likely in bounds. The real danger is just to miss OB.
Open 2023, and the best what the Konopiště Open 2023 has is about to start right now. Ladies.
As we can see the players warming up for their final test on this Franz Ferdinand course.
Sponsored by DISCMANIA, presented by DISCMANIA. Right now, we are ahead of our wonderful action of our lead card. Please give a warm welcome to man from Kuopio, Finland, sponsored by DISCMANIA, your current European champion, Mr. Niklas Anttila.
Pretty big crowd on this final day. That's a good couple hundred people watching this lead card.
Definitely some great enthusiasm from the locals to see these guys absolutely shredding on this course. A beautiful venue. We have Niklas Anttila, your current leader, up first, swinging the wide hyzer. This is a little bit high and coming in with quite some heat, catches a skip, and just sneaks out of bounds. He will be left at the drop zone, most likely taking a 4.
That's an unfortunate start there from Niklas.
And your 6-time world champion, Paul McBeth.
Paul obviously another crowd favorite, 6-time world champion, but really the difference with Niklas' shot compared to other ones was that it was way higher, so he had the time to fade left. As we see Paul going with very safe forehand. I bet he wasn't going for such a safe shot, maybe a little bit of an early release there, but he's gonna have a pretty easy par from there. So at least 1 stroke from Niklas on the first hole.
Finland, representing DISCMANIA and Hyzerflex, please give warm welcome to Daniel Davidsson.
Another DISCMANIA player joining us here. Daniel, a strong command of both the backhand and the forehand, as we see him now lean towards that.
Yeah, Daniel, very well known for his accurate forehand. This is one shot that he is expected to throw well. Also goes with a fairly safe line, just as Paul did. And Daniel also in layup territory. not likely to be running from there.
Representing Disc Golf Club Hunters, discgolfshop.com, and he is your 2022 World Putting Champion. Please give it up for Jakub Semerád!
And Jakub, of course, the local favorite. You hear the crowd pop. Absolutely incredible. He'll be rounding out our lead card here, currently sitting in 4th. Trying to push for a podium finish today.
Yeah, it's a course that very well suits Jakub's game. As we have seen before, he has played well on this course. He's fading a little bit towards the left side OB, but does stay safe. That's I'm sure his heart rate went a little bit up when he saw the disc fading left, but that's a decent start. Having a look for the basket, but at least an easy par.
Niklas actually putting from the drop zone. Very rare. Not a lot of players would have the pace required to putt from that distance, but as you see, it's just easy work for him. Keeps it well safe of any OB long or left and positions himself for a short putt. Daniel here from the bushes.
This is a pretty good indicator of how aggressive he wants to be today, and just leaving it short. A bit of a safe run there. You can see he wasn't really going for it fully. Let's see what Paul does. Known for aggressive putting. Not really this time though. Leaves it also very short. Kind of a conservative run. I'm sure he's fine with getting 1 stroke on the leader, Niklas here.
Jakub to find 2 strokes. Really tentative. Comes out soft and still almost contends with that OB. Keeps it in bounds by just a meter or so. As you see here, Jakub coming back. That looks like we're going to be having 1 bogey for Niklas and 3 pars for the rest of our lead card.
Yeah, a little bit tense looking on this first hole for almost all players. Nobody really throwing the perfect shot, but it's a big tournament. It's certainly one of the more appreciated tournaments in Central Europe. As we see Niklas tapping in that unfortunate bogey.
They then walk to hole 2, a par 4 at 169 meters, although significantly uphill plays longer than that. Players will need an uphill straight to hyzer finish. A really good shot will get around this second corner and through this gap here, positioning yourself for an upshot and opening up the angle to swing through these thick guardians and around or under this very last tree on the right side of the green, the final obstacle to make your way to the basket and try to find your birdie. This one requires a ton of power off the tee and then a good accurate placement shot on the approach.
Yeah, on this hole it's really important to get your drive high and to the left, because that opens up your angle to the green for the approach. I'm sure Paul will try to do something like that. Although that's a bit of an early release. That's much earlier to the left than he would like to. You can hear his reaction. He said, "Oh no," as soon as the disc left his hand. And for good reason. That's probably a very difficult spot. Likely no chance for the green and hopefully a chance for the par.
Daniel now. He is 2 strokes behind Paul and 3 behind Niklas currently. This is a much more naturally shaping line to the fairway, and that is absolute perfection. A ton of power to push it that far around the corner. I think he'll even have a straight line to the basket. Great placement.
I believe so. That's certainly, I think, the best drive we have seen on this hole all weekend. Jakub going with a bit of a lower line than Daniel, And you can see it's pushing a bit too long. That's really the height difference. You know, Daniel got that strong finish to the left compared to Jakub pushing straight.
And Niklas, also with a slightly early release, comes out on a significant hyzer angle, and although it was a more similar height to Jakub's, not nearly as forwards pushing, but he looks to have fought through the left side rough. You see Paul in a very awkward stance, what he's left with here off the knee. A surprisingly good shot, really progresses all the way up to, he'll have another off-the-knee putt most likely from that final guardian bush.
Yeah, that was really not bad from there. He had a lot of power on the forehand. As we see Niklas, he did get barely around the corner off the drive and also throws a great low hyzer skipping forehand to the green. That's a great approach, and he will be able to make up for the bogey on hole 1 there.
And Jakub has pushed so far forwards, he's actually playing sort of this secondary fairway. Although it may look wooded, there are some gaps that are larger than even the more traditional gaps in the right side woods. We see Daniel there with an amazing tee shot, makes his upshot super easy as he just pitches that one up. Nice touch and placement.
Yeah, this hole really plays for the strengths of Daniel, being able to throw those hard backhands and touch forehands very well most of the time. As we see, Jakub has a pretty big gap. It's actually quite open to the woods on the right, and he will likely have a putt for the par there. Paul with a bit of a low effort there. I believe he was running that, but just not getting the pop on the disc.
Jakub now. And I believe that was for par, being caught up in the woods and having a tough time getting to the green. He'll be having a short putt for bogey. And we see there Paul taking his par. Honestly, a great scramble considering his very tough position off the tee. Birdie, I think, although he had a look, was extremely difficult to translate to from his position. Par is just fine. And our leader, Niklas, wiping that bogey from hole 1 off the board with a birdie here on hole 2.
This is a great birdie to get. Another one of these not quite as often birdied holes on the course, even though it's not a very bogeyable hole, as we saw Jakub unfortunately taking the bogey, but birdie is certainly a good score.
Our players then go on a short walk towards hole 3, a 317-meter par 5. You have a severely right-to-left sloping fairway that will catch any backhand roller on too much of a cut angle or any hyzer fading disc out to the left. You want to push it straight off the tee, and then your second shot up towards these large guardians. You then position yourself to fight through this gap. Once again now, battling the right to left sloping fairway into a descending green. Very fast, a lot of discs come in with a little bit too much heat, and you often get a skip or roll. A lot of players will choose to go extra wide on the approach to play the hillside a little bit.
Yeah, this is a beautiful hole, especially for the roller. With the roller, you can almost get into an eagle position off the tee if you throw it perfect. As we see Daniel having a great angle and a great line off the tee, just curling before the last tree on the left, and that's exactly what I was talking about. Insane roller, and he's truly gonna have a good look for the eagle there. That was huge and in perfect position.
You could not find a better spot. We see Niklas now on more cut angle. He is going to be battling the left side of this hole now as he is firing through into the rough, still getting a lot of distance. We'll have to see what he's left with there. Will be an awkward position, heavily blocked back to the fairway. We see Paul now also opting for that roller line. Lays one down with a significant anhyzer release.
Looks like he was going towards the right side bush. We'll have to see whether he got around it or not. But if he didn't, that's a really tough spot. Jakub also going with a bit of a more flat release with more understable disc, and he's got a good angle on this, and even though it's not a huge distance, that's a great position to be off the tee. He's also gonna have a look at the gap towards the basket, and hopefully getting an easy birdie there.
Paul now from an awkward stance.
Yeah, looks like he did actually hit the right side bushes off the tee, and he's actually playing to the right side of the gap, short right side of the gap, and he's gonna have a low ceiling from there, but certainly a chance to get to the basket.
Jakub from a prime position, getting a soft anhyzer release, catching a branch on his way, but still a ton of speed. He fires one into that hillside, and he will have just a jump putt approach for his birdie if he would like it. Daniel now, we mentioned how good he is statistically off the drives. This is an incredible placement. And as he pushes this hyzer, he wants it to go a little bit straighter than I think it is. But actually, it's really, really good. He is right up there, I think, about circle's edge for eagle.
Yeah, that was a great shot. And even though you could see he wanted to throw the hyzer from more outside right, that's still on the edge of the circle. That's an incredible look for eagle. And Niklas actually fighting through the left side of the fairway, almost going OB over the path, but just getting a great skip on top of the path and skipping back in bounds. So anything left of the path is OB, so that's a really good break for Niklas to just barely hit the path and bounce back inside.
I think an intentional skip play from him, as we see Paul fire one into the hillside, doesn't catch the full fade. I think Niklas may very well be the only person who played that line this weekend, because there is actually a Mando preventing this left side, but I think his roller was so far that he was in front of the Mando, allowing him to then take that alternate route. And you see there with a great high Anheuser release forehand, fights his way to the green. Wow.
Yeah, certainly an unorthodox way to play this hole, but seems like he has a look for the birdie. And Jakub, as you predicted, has just a jump putt to the basket, although he does leave it about 7 or 8 meters away. Paul here, downhill, pretty scary putt to run fully, as he does leave it a little bit low. Not really putting a perfectly full effort on this putt so far. He'll have to figure that out soon. Especially since Niklas gets another birdie from outside the circle there. That's an incredible, almost I would call that a scramble birdie.
Absolutely. I mean, from that position off the tee, that's an incredible birdie save. We see Jakub there cashing another amazing putt for his birdie as well. Left himself with a bit of distance remaining, but a strong putt removes that error from play. We see Daniel here for eagle.
That's so unfortunate. I really wanted to see an eagle here, and I'm sure all of the gallery wanted to see it as well. It's tough to swallow, but at least still an easy birdie there. Not losing any strokes to the card.
As Paul finds himself a par, unable yet to find a birdie in this final round, will fall behind a little bit that pace set by the other players here on the lead card. Our final round action continues on hole 4, a 109-meter par 3. You have a narrow width and a tight gap that you want to hit. A lot of players will opt for a turnover backhand, turning over through this gap here. You want your disc to flatten and maybe even potentially fade up towards this flat plateau and position yourself as close as possible to this precariously placed basket at the edge of a slope. This one can really cause some trouble on the putting green, so for a lot of players it will be a layup if they're not within a comfortable putting range.
Yeah, on this hole it's super important to land right side of the basket to keep the discs from fading down left, as we see Daniel going with an understable mid-range, which is a good play, but he throws it too far right, hitting the big bushy tree on the right side of the fairway. But that's an easy par from there, pending a good layup. Niklas, I believe, going with a second run FD. Very beat up one. It's understable, and you can see he's trying to turn it over to the right, but unfortunately not turning it over enough and fading left side of the basket. He's gonna have a long look, but it's certainly a scary one, because any basket hit from there and you're likely to be rolling down. Jakub with a severe Anheuser release, just slightly too far right on the release. It was a good angle, but he hit the right side bushes and dropping down from circle 2. Paul with a very good looking line here, turning it over to the right, and he's inside the circle there, I believe. It's a scary putt there from around 9 to 10 meters, because if you miss that putt, you're certainly rolling and flying down to circle 2. Daniel here just trying to lay up. Important to lay up right side of the basket, as he does very well, because if you lay up too straight or too far left, you're likely to be rolling down the hill. And Jakub with the same thing, well right of the basket, removing any risk of rolling down. That's a well played hole, or well played layup at least. Niklas actually with a potential to make the birdie here. Wow, incredible run there. Having to straddle uphill almost 15 meters, just barely left. And Paul with the only real chance for the birdie here, from 10 meters. Unfortunately hitting it a little bit too high. He's really having some putting struggles right now. That's really not what we expect from Paul. He's usually a very solid putter, especially in this final round. tough situations. Daniel there with just a tap-in par. It's a very, not a very rarely birdied hole, but it's certainly more difficult as a birdie than pretty much any other hole on the course. Since if you want to get the birdie, your drive has to be almost perfect. And even when it is very good, as we saw from Paul, you still have to make a great putt. So all of the players here on the lead card settling for the par on this hole. And moving on to the next one, hole 5.
We are now on hole 5, a 219-meter par 4 with right-to-left sloping fairway and 2 available options. You see on the right of your frame the first fairway to go for a little bit of a shortcut gap. Some players will opt to go sky and hyzer and battle their way around there. The more traditional fairway, as the drone flies, is a straight shot of about 100 meters, leaving you with a similar distance, although significantly uphill, playing like longer. You want to battle your way up the hill towards this well-protected green and secure the birdie. I think a good placement off the tee is what's required to ensure that you can still fight for the birdie. The second shot is fairly simple if you have a good tee shot.
Yeah, this hole is a lot about the drive. As we have seen, actually Niklas go for some great roller shots on this hole. That's another great way to play the hole. And Daniel, he was almost in putting distance last round as he goes for the high Anheuser route. Almost an impossible shot to film. Hopefully coming into view here. Looks like he's faded out into the fairway, or rather turned well over into the fairway, but he's gonna have a look from there. Only about 90 to 100 meters left to the basket.
We'll see if Niklas here can find his third perfect roller on this hole. He's hit it cleanly twice. He knows his angles, he knows his game plan, and this is looking really good. Lands it on a cut angle against the hill, looking to end this to the right. And he does exactly that. Not as amazing as some of his other drives, but still incredibly good and an absolutely ideal location for him to be.
Yeah, really making that roller look easy, going with a very understable disc and hitting it just perfect there. Jakub has been going for this left side gap with a stable driver, slight Anheuser, trying to glide it down there. He didn't quite have the height to get a lot of distance there, but he still has a look for the basket. It looks like Paul is lining up the forehand, which is also a good play to go through the left side gap with a powerful forward pushing forehand. And looks like that's another just perfect shot there. Good position, only about 80 to 90 meters left to the basket.
These players go on the short walk. You see them discussing lines, available fairways. Daniel up first from the right side, or in fact faded back towards the left. He's now fighting towards the traditional fairway from an awkward spot, laying down a big turnover roller. He pushes it just a little bit too straight, and he'll now be coming back towards the green, although it will be obstructed. That's a big tree there.
Yeah, most likely no look there. Really confusing where his drive was. I thought it was right of the fairway, but it was left, as we see Jakub going with an Anheuser. Anheuser is very difficult on this hole because the hillside is trying to pull the disc left, as we see himself fading left there. That's why many of the players will choose a forehand approach to get to the green, because it will fight the hillside and hopefully finish with just a small skip.
And you see exactly that from Paul there. Playing the hillside nicely, battles his way up to the green. He'll have about 6 or 7 meters for his birdie putt. And Niklas, the best positioned off the tee of the group, giving this one a soft Anheuser release with quite a stable looking disc, gets a final flare towards the basket. He is right up there in the circle for his birdie as well. And look at that gallery, folks. That was a great shot to see just how many people came out to watch this final round MPO action.
Yeah, that's nice to see that people are extremely interested about these top players, as we see Jakub with a very obstructed look. Almost makes it. Looks like he found a great gap there. And I guess we must have missed Daniel's putt. Niklas there with a great pitch putt again from about 7 meters away. That's an important one to get. Really solidifying that hot start after the 1 bogey on hole 1.
Paul matches him on the birdie for hole 5. Make sure not to give up too much of a lead, as Paul is now 3 strokes behind rather than 4. Securing that one, maintaining pace. Daniel here, this must be for par, as he taps that one in. We saw him have an incredible placement off the tee shot in yesterday's round, but today just stalling the disc out a little bit too early. Didn't find the full Anheuser flight. And it's worth mentioning it was very gusty in round 3. The winds were really coming and going and changing directions frequently, so you had to be thoughtful, and even between the time you pull your disc out and between when you throw, it could have changed directions. Could very well contend with that on the tee shot. We move to hole 6. A par 3 at 115 meters, once again sloping right to left. We are on the same hill as the previous hole. You have OB lining the left side the entire way. Definitely the most common mistake on this hole is to find that, so as a result a lot of players will throw the power hyzer forehand if they're comfortable, or the softly turned over backhand, trying to just flatten it out towards the end. Really the mistake is releasing a backhand too high or too overstable of a disc.
Yeah, as we see Niklas going with a putter on this 150 meter hole. It's playing slightly downhill, so even with the putter it's very reachable, as he throws just a perfect looking shot. Great angle control, great line, great height. Let's take another look at it. You can see that putter just slightly turning over after he releases it, really removing any chance of fading to the left side OB. That was just beautiful. Niklas has really come to play today.
Incredible composure. We see Paul going to the forehand, the safer of the 2 lines. He's going to push this left side OB and have it fade before or after the tree. Actually comes up a little bit short, threw it about 105 rather than 115. He'll be putting around that final tree. And he had some struggles with his forehand in round 2, credited the rain delay to the thunder delay to allow him some time to work on that forehand. We'll see if he can find it a little bit better today.
As we saw, Daniel, usually a very accurate forehand player, throwing it a little bit too low on this hole, possibly trying to fight the slight unpredictable wind that we had here. And Jakub, actually, we have seen him already twice fade out on this hole, so maybe that's on the back of his head, throwing it very low, removing the chance of fading OB, but also not very close to the basket.
This is Niklas, the only one who's really up there for putting. We'll see Jakub, his approach here, really nice gentle touch, plays the hillside perfectly and sits it under the basket for a tap in 3. We will see Daniel also considerably short, still with an upshot remaining.
Yeah, this is certainly not what you're looking for on this hole. It's one of the more easily reachable par 3s on the course, as we see Daniel laying up to about 6 meters away. And Paul, this is a really important putt. He needs to make this in order to keep pace with Niklas.
And he just does not find the chains. Coming up a little bit soft. He spins out to about 6 or 7, still uphill. The final tester, as we see Daniel now scooping one in for par. Low left side, gets the spin around. He doesn't look too pleased with that, but there you go. Thanks the basket for its efforts, and a good catch to keep him at par here.
Yeah, very important to keep the round clean here. It's certainly not a hole that you want to bogey, as Paul is making the par. Certainly not a hole that you want to bogey, but also this course is certainly a course that you would like to see your scorecard be mostly green and black. You know, it's certainly one of the easier courses we play. And you know that if you want to win on this course, you need to get a lot of birdies and not many bogeys. As Niklas taps in his birdie after the great drive, really not leaving any work for the putt. and gets a stroke on everybody on the card. That's very surprising here.
As he looks to extend his lead, they move to hole 7, a par 3 at 105 meters, although once again significantly uphill and playing is quite a lot longer. It is a tunnel shot the entire way, and also in a lot of places a low ceiling. Very rare to see a shot cleanly fight through everything without touching a branch. The most common shape here is a hyzer flip up to flat or a soft anhyzer release with a stable disc flexing for distance. This is a great hole and really shows the precision and a little bit of where the players are at this point in the round, if they have control over the high-speed drivers on a tricky angle or not.
Yeah, very true, and good that you mentioned the high-speed drivers, as it's playing very far. Niklas actually going with a understable fast speed driver there, perfectly through the gap. A little bit low. He hopes for a bit of a skip at the end, and he's certainly putting, but not quite parked. In order to be parked, you have to be very precise with the height on this hole, because you have a low ceiling, yet you do want to keep the disc from not hitting the ground too early if you want to get the full distance. As we see Paul with a bit of a higher shot, trying to park the hole. Looks very good, unfortunately hitting the one of the last branches on the right side of the fairway. That was a really good line, just pushing it too far to the right there, but he's going to have a look from circle 2.
Daniel now sitting at 2 under so far in this final round. Getting this one on hyzer release, flipping it up to flat, and just battling past all of those branches. He is in a great spot, just about 6 or 7 meters out, pin high to the left. It's quite forgiving if you fade out a bit early, but you have to avoid all of those trees along the way. Jakub, the natural flex player. Beauty. Absolute beauty.
Just perfect there. And you can see, as we take another look at his form, just look at the anhyzer release, really slightly forcing the disc over with that low follow through, keeping everything well compact, and it's a really good, solid, accurate form there from Jakub Semerád.
So we see Paul up first. A big hyzer bid, and again just off the cage. And look at this roll. That sloping green really punishing him, as everyone has to move out the way. He'll be left with a longer putt than where he started, and he's going to try to throw this in with the forehand. Gives it a chance, but a little bit short. You saw him go quite quickly there. May indicate that he is frustrated so far with the round, or at least with how his discs are feeling coming out of the hand.
Absolutely, and not the start Paul was looking for, to catch Niklas, who gets another birdie on this hole. And that's 2 strokes on Paul McBeth on a single hole, really extending that lead. And it might be after this hole that Paul is not even on the second place, as Daniel is trying to get his birdie here. Unfortunately, just missing high left. Not really looking that confident on the putter today, but he will have to get that in check soon if he wants to finish well in this tournament.
Which is unfortunate, because Daniel is throwing the disc so well off the tee. A lot of strokes lost on the green, but a lot of them gained off his tee shots. So still having a good result overall. Just a few things to adjust. And we see the crowd love for Jakub there for just a simple tap-in birdie. They love to see it. Proud to have him representing their country. Hole 8, a 90-meter par 3, one of the friendliest holes on the course. No real slope to contend with. You have a wide open gap off the tee into this field. You want a disc to pierce through this late tree line into one of the available gaps. A lot of players will lean on the forehand through the left gap. You can also come through this right gap where the drone flies with a turnover backhand or flex, but a lot of players will have a left to right shape regardless of which side they throw.
Yeah, this hole really calls for the overstable fairway driver skip forehand. I'm sure at least Daniel, Niklas and Paul are going for that play, as we see Niklas reaching for the FD3, trying to keep it low and hopefully get around the one last guardian tree. Goes in front of it, but fortunately takes a soft skip and stays within putting distance there. That's a decent result with, I feel like, a bit of an early release, as we see Jakub going with a more traditional wide route, going high and just absolutely parking the hole. It's a really, really good showcase of that forehand that he's not very commonly using, but is still working quite well.
And a great use of the overstable disc there from Jakub. You saw it in the ground play. Daniel with the most casual looking walk up, but unfortunately had a decent line connecting with one of those late trees. It's quite common, at least one player on any given card finds one of them. They really are right in the spot you want your disc to fade. Paul also with a soft anhyzer release, very overstable, fights through, and he's right up there on the green. There's a really thoughtful green design and course layout design here in Konopište, Franz, Ferdinand disc golf course. A lot of extra added elements this year, especially the elevated baskets on some of the easier holes. We'll see Daniel just a little bit low, that elevation coming into play.
Yeah, and especially with the elevated basket plus the green slightly sloping from right to left. We see Niklas putting it in the middle, unfazed by that elevated basket. He's playing super confident right now. Everything looks to be in control, and that's exactly what he needs to do if he wants to extend that lead even more. And Paul getting a bounce back after the bogey on the previous hole. You can see he's not very excited about that, as he shouldn't be. It's one of the easier birdies on the course. And as we see, 3 birdies on the card and Daniel with the lone par.
I think it speaks to the difficulty of having such high expectations, both from the crowd on yourself as a player like Paul, but also how you expect yourself to play, and falling short of that can be frustrating for any player of any caliber. Very relatable, I think, for a lot of people watching at home.
Yeah, especially after the incredible 14 under round he had yesterday, so tough, much tougher start today than yesterday.
Still got some holes to play. As we look to close out this front 9, we are here, hole 9, a par 4 at 288 meters, one of the most fun tee shots to throw on the course, going downhill the entire way, as well as a soft right to left slope. You want to blast your drive off the tee and then battle through that second tree line we just beat into this fast sloping green. You do have OB right behind it, as well as OB on the left where the fairway narrows in the second gap. The only real dangers for penalty strokes. We see Niklas up first.
You can see Niklas going with a severe hyzer angle off the tee, really taking out the risk of hanging it too far right and hitting the far side trees of the fairway. That's just the perfect position there. Not really going for huge distance, but certainly enough distance to get to the green from there with the next shot. As we see a different shot from Jakub, as he usually does, throws a bit of an anhyzer to flat release with a very overstable disc, and fights to a very similar spot as Niklas.
Paul now also opting for that hyzer release, gives it some height, leaning towards the left side of the fairway. It does allow for a significantly more hyzer approach, which I think a lot of players appreciate coming into the fast downhill green. If you're more on that right side or straight even, it really is more of a straight shot, which is a bit more touchy, especially going downhill. Daniel there, also with a great drive, just a big ol' hyzer and well positioned.
You can see all the players getting well past the 150 meter sign on the fairway. That means 150 meters from the tee.
And a great energy to the card, some good smiles there, showing they're in good spirits, enjoying the beautiful day, especially after the weather in round 2. Round 3 was really fantastic scoring conditions. Sunny, quiet, calm winds.
Daniel going with a slow disc from all the way about 135 meters away. Just barely putting it a bit too high in the air, fading out. As we see, Niklas is more on the left side of the fairway, having a hyzer look to the basket, which is ideal for the approach. I think it's easier to control the distance and the line with the hyzer, although he does control the distance a little bit too short there, and not really a birdie look unless he makes a long circle 2 putt.
Jakub now getting a straight penetrating shot through the gap, now looking to find some fade. He needs to slow it down as it fires towards... Unclear if that is inbounds. The crowd is clapping, although I'm not sure if that is a great indicator of whether or not he kept it safe.
Yeah, it looks like he might have actually slid under the fence and OB long, which is really unfortunate. That's really the mistake you want to avoid on this approach. As we see Paul also going a little bit too long, skipping under the basket, but he stays safe inside the circle there for a chance at birdie. Paul really needs to start putting some birdies together if he wants a chance to win this event, with Niklas already leading by 6, extending that 2-stroke lead from the before the round to already 6 on this hole 9.
Niklas now, a very long look downhill. And he finds it. The man is unstoppable. Just an absolute champion here today. As you said, he has come to play. You see that scorecard going OB on the first hole, completely unfazed. Continues to birdie 7 of the remaining holes. Let's take another look.
Yeah, that was beautiful, really showing off that really direct spin putt he has, putting it slightly nose up, and insane control of the flight. He really saw that, it was in halfway within the flight. It's a great putt from almost 20 meters away.
And right with the gallery behind the basket facing him. You see Daniel now. He's had some struggles on the putting greens, but not here on hole 9. Another amazing birdie as he cashes that one from also deep circle 2. Nicely done, Daniel, as he finds a solid putting stroke.
Yeah, Daniel is actually one of the more versatile putters in Finland. Really, he's able to imitate almost any putting style in the world. I have seen it personally, so very good at adjusting the putt as far as distance and angle. Jakub also making it in for the par, so he did go OB long with the approach, but a very good save there. And these guys are absolutely destroying the basket right now. Let's see if Paul can keep it up.
Paul just out the left side. Very uncharacteristic of him, especially in these high-pressure, high-stakes scenarios. Obviously, so much experience on the lead cards and so familiar with that feeling of end-of-tournament rounds. Holes are running out, and if Paul cannot put together a few more birdies, he's going to be overtaken.
Yeah, and especially I feel like there's something so disappointing about being the only one on the card missing the putt, and so let's see how Paul can handle that. But wow, Niklas really tearing the front 9 apart once again. 6 under through the front, extending his lead to 7 strokes. It's really looking like a one-man show right here, as Daniel has actually climbed his way into the second position. Paul being tied with him, and 4th place Jakub and Hjalmar Fredriksson, a very young player from Sweden. We see a lot of new names on the top 10 list. Let's see what happens on the back 9.
Only 9 left to go before we crown your Konopiště champion. Make sure to join us there, and thanks for joining us here. See you there.